Welcome everybody to this webinar on designing a responsive student-centered front page. I'm your host, Jonathan Aragon, and with me today co-hosting is PFF fellow Jessi Knippel.
Hey everybody.
And I'm a PFF fellow also. I think that's we also have Shelby Lamar here, who is Assistant Director of Preparing Future Faculty.
Hey everyone.
And it's a pleasure to have you here. Just a few notes before we begin in regards to participation. You're welcome to participate as much or as little as you like. You can begin a discussion, ask me questions at any point during the presentation. It doesn't distract me, so participation is always welcome. However, don't feel any pressure to. If you find the closed captioning useful, it is enabled below. So if you just click the live transcript button, the closed captioning window will pull up, and then you can adjust it to the size as you need. As far as the video goes, you're welcome to have your video on or off, whatever you feel comfortable with. If you feel more comfortable just turning your camera off and listening, you're welcome to do that, of course. Just do whatever's comfortable for you. To reduce Zoom fatigue, you may also consider turning off the self view. So if you click the little kebab icon, it looks like an ellipsis by your photo. There will be a drop-down menu, and you can choose to turn off self view, so you don't have to look at yourself during the whole meeting. And you may also find it helpful to reduce your window size down to make everyone else's faces appear more at a distance, like it would be more in real life. And I think that's it as far as the participation goes. Our essential question for today is, what kind of Canvas experience do we want to model for our students and for future educators? So it's one thing to build our courses on our LMS, our learning management systems, for the sake of getting our courses off the ground. But I think it's important to also remember that we tend to default to how we were taught when we teach others. So when we design our Canvas courses, our Canvas front page, let's be mindful of what we're modeling for others. And in line with that, let's also think about how we can really stretch our inclusive thinking muscles. So when we're talking about inclusive thinking and student-centeredness, it's not about can we think of everything possible. The question is not can we think of everything possible, but it's more of can we stretch that muscle? Can we practice it? Just like the artist is always striving to tap more into their creativity, the performer is seeking to be a better performer, the scientist is always seeking ways to contribute to their field. As educators, we're always striving to do a better job, to be more inclusive. So inclusive thinking, student-centeredness, it's not about trying to think of everything as it is just always trying to do better, always seeking to do better. Okay, so as far as our agenda goes today, this is all going to be focused on the front page of your learning management system. And the limitations of this are the examples that I give will be specific to Canvas. So the concepts that we discuss will be applicable to any learning management system, but the examples that I give will be specific to Canvas. The way the webinar will break down today is we'll go through student-centered guidelines, really focusing on guidelines for building a student-centered front page. And as we go through each of the guidelines, we'll also discuss the importance of why we're doing that and give you some examples on how you can implement it. And before jumping right in, I would just like us to take a moment to prime ourselves for the topic. So you can reflect on this, you can share it in chat or share it out loud, however you see comfortable. But what do you care about when you use Canvas as a student, if you are a graduate student? If you're not currently a student and using Canvas in a student capacity, then put yourself in the shoes of a student for a minute and think about, what do you care about when you use Canvas? So what things are most important to you? And I'll just pause for a little bit while you reflect on that. Good. Carrie says, accessing readings in the syllabus. Maritza says the dates and times, the Zoom links of class. I heard it's very useful. Being reminded of course goals and learning outcomes. Great. So a lot of what I heard is what I would call the essential information. And that is something that we'll talk about today. So I'm hearing that essential information is really important to us when we use Canvas. Excellent. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so let's nail down real quick what we mean when we say student-centered. So when we say student-centered, we really mean it's built with the student in mind. And that prioritizes the student experience over professor ease. Now, to be honest with you, building a student-centered design to begin with is actually easier for the professor in the long run because you spend less time clearing up confusion, but it is building it with the student, the user, in mind first, not just for the experience by itself, but also with optimizing their learning in mind, enabling them to manage their own learning. And a student-centered design is informative, transparent, easy to digest, responsive, accessible, warm, and welcoming. And we'll talk about what we mean by each of these terms here. But informative, right away, that's where a lot of our comments were when we were sort of brainstorming the things that we like in Canvas. That essential information. You might think this is cheesy. That's okay. It is kind of cheesy, but this is just like a little acronym if it helps you to remember these concepts that we're talking about today. So it's drawlet, digestible, responsive, accessible, warm and welcoming, informative, and transparent. So by digestible, we mean that it's free of noise, there's no long scrolling pages. Responsive, that the page fits, the content on the pages adjust to fit different screen sizes, whether you're switching from a mobile device to a computer. Accessible, so we try to think of students with different circumstances and challenges they may deal with, And so designing in a way where we're considering students of many different backgrounds and current circumstances. Warm and welcoming, setting the tone for the class, and the expectations for the course up front. Informative, providing the key information that we all have said that we care so much about. And transparent. We know exactly what we have to do. We know exactly where we're going. We know what the expectations are of the class. We know what we're trying to learn throughout and how Canvas is assisting us with that. So much of the time I hear that we're not sure why we understand why we're doing what we're doing on Canvas. And so that's why it's so important to be transparent with your front page design. Okay, so let's dive into these in a little bit more detail. So, digestible. So, what we mean is that the content that we present on the front page is free of noise. And what do we mean by noise? Well, noise means many different things, but essentially we're talking about the ratio of relevant information to irrelevant information. So we all have identified certain things that we actually care about when we're using Canvas. And you can understand where if the information is bloated or not easily readable, that can be a little bit frustrating and can hinder learning. So we really want to eliminate any information that is not essential to getting our students doing what they need to do, and eliminating anything that's secondary. We also talk about visual clutter. So a big part of teaching, I feel, is reducing anxiety, because we all have so much anxiety in life and in the world, and especially as college students, we're all multitasking and managing many different responsibilities. So even dealing with that visual clutter can add unneeded stress, and we want to make sure that the stress we're bringing in is good stress that comes from being challenged and stretched to be the best versions of ourselves, not stress that comes from frustrating, I can't find what I need to find. And that really brings us to this last point here, which is wading through the content to get what you need and care about. So yeah, we don't want students to be surfing around trying to find what they need. It should be clearly evident what we're looking for. So why are these things important? I mentioned a little bit of the stress management. There's also the cognitive load aspect. So we all have, something like, don't quote me on this, but like 4 slots of working memory. The psychologists in here might chime in and help me with that. But yeah, we can't hold a lot of information in at once. And there's some debate as to whether ego depletion exists or not, but I think we can all agree that when we go to start our workday, when we go to begin a task, the more time we spend preparing to do what we have to do, the less mental energy we have left to do what we want to do. So we want to save the cognitive work for the things we actually want our students to do. And we also want to make our content digestible, because it's just the compassionate thing to do. So, when possible, why not do what's compassionate? And then from the learning perspective again, it provides our students with a sense of agency and management. So you want students to be able to go to Canvas and be able to manage their own learning with everything that you provided there to do it on their own. So if you've made it really difficult for people to find what they need, then you're making it difficult for them to manage their own learning. So I know traditionally in higher education, we focus a lot on putting the responsibility of learning on the student, which it is partially a student responsibility. I think it's a shared responsibility, but enabling students to manage their own learning is an important responsibility we have as educators. So how do you do this? Well, one way is managing the layout of your Canvas front page. So you really want to use the full width of the screen space rather than having a long scrolling page. So this is using the full width of it, and as you can see, you can get more of the information in one glance without scrolling if you use the full width of the page rather than this long scrolling page, because you have all the content here and then you have all this unused space over here. So already by having to scroll down, we're making students fish for things, which is not something that we want. And a big red X. No. A way that you can design the layout on your front page to make use of the full width is very simple. When you create your Canvas account, or if you already have one, you go into your page, your front page that you're designing, and click this Insert button and Table, and then you can just sort of sketch out, like you would on a drawing pad, how you want your page to look and where you want the content to go. So if you create tables like this, then you can get the content to fit within the full page rather than just stacking it on top of each other. And it's a very simple way also to just think about the design that you want, what do you want to go anywhere, just like writing on a sketch pad. Shamini joined us, Director of Preparing Future Faculty. Welcome, Shamini.
Hi, everyone.
Another aspect of it is we had talked about the visual clutter. So you want to break up the content in some way. So I provided just a very simple example of one way that you can break up the content. And so here you'll see that there's larger header text than there is body text. There's bars to separate the content, and then some bullet points are used down below. You can't quite see, but just like you would in making a paper syllabus, you want to reduce that clutter. So if you didn't have all this different sizes and bars to separate it, and you didn't have a lot of space between your paragraphs, bullet lists, the visual might become overwhelming and cause some of that stress we don't want to cause. So here you can see you can easily scan with your eyes the page and know what is where and what you're looking for. When you go to do this, Canvas has the heading and paragraph. So a good rule of thumb is you can just use heading 2 for all of your title headers, and then paragraph for your body text. To achieve the borders, all you have to do is go into the HTML editor and add this line of code. So the tag will already be in there. You just have to write border bottom 10 pixels is how thick you want it to be, and solid black, that's the color you want it to be. And at the bottom of your Canvas page, you will see some additional tools. This one right here is the HTML tag icon. So when you click that, it will take you to sort of a back-end view of the rich content editor that you see on the front view. And you can just look for the, here we see like the P tags. So when you make it an H2, you'll see an H2 tag, and all you have to do is go in and add the border in there. Okay, so that's some ways we can implement some more digestible content. And what do we mean by responsive? Well, I said briefly that when we say responsive, we mean that the content that you put on your page adjusts to fit within the different screen sizes. And usually this is an issue with images mostly. So when you add a banner image to your site, or you add like buttons for your navigation menus, or really any kind of images, there's something extra that you have to do to make sure that it will adjust to different screen sizes. And I'll tell you what that is. But let's talk about why it's important. Well, it's important to maintain the integrity of the content across devices because, again, our students are human beings with different circumstances. They're on the go. They might be trying to get to things quickly on their phone, their tablet, their computer, whatever they need. So you want to make sure that for all those visual design reasons, for all those navigation reasons, we just want to maintain the integrity of that content. So here you'll see a banner image and then this little syllabus button here. And so those are like examples of images you might have on your Canvas site. And if you shrink your window and you don't adjust the width to 100%, then you'll find that your images get all jumbled about when you adjust it. So before that was like the web view, and this is what it would look like on your phone if it adjusts to fit the size appropriately. So when you add your image on Canvas, you can do that on the front end with your rich text editor, but you would just need to make it, in order to make it responsive, you just have to click that HTML tag, and then it will look like this. It will say IMG, and then you just have to add this one line of code in here, say style width 100%. Or you might find if it's in the paragraph somewhere and you want to adjust the width, then you would just find the width and the height. And instead of setting a set height, so when you automatically add images to Canvas, it will give you the option to change the size of your image. You can say like 250 by 175 for width and height. But if you really want to change it to adjust, you have to go into the HTML side of it and just change it to 100%. And then your content will be responsive. Okay. Yes, Catherine, you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering on the when you listed the 100 and then the 75, there it said 100%, but then it just had the 75. So is the 75 a size versus do you have to put the percentage? I guess is my question. Do you have to put the percentage at all times when you're?
Yeah, you do. So you don't have to change the height, but when you go into the tag, you'll see that it will say like width 250. You do need to put percent at the end of it and just change it to like 100, and then it will adjust to whatever the screen size is.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So moving on to accessible. So when we're talking about accessibility, it's referring to the design of the web environment so that it's usable by people of many different circumstances, like we talked about. And there's no standard accessible web content. There's no one standard for it. It's more of what we talked about in the beginning. It's exercising that inclusive thinking muscle. So you just want to think about web design that is accessible to many different students. And there's also this idea of direct access and indirect access, meaning that the person's direct access is their direct interface with your Canvas front page, and then the indirect compatibility is how they access it with their assistive technology, such as using a screen reader. So when you're thinking about your front page and you want to make it more accessible, here are some things to think about. You want to ensure that all your links include text that can be read with a screen reader. So that means that if you want to make buttons as links that go places because it looks more visually appealing, that's great. You just want to perhaps put text as well, that when a screen reader reads it, it will read the text. Alternatively, if you just want to use a button and not put text on there, then you need to go into the HTML and adjust the alt tag to have a description of what the link is, of what the button is. And then the screen reader will also read out what that description is. But ideally, you would do both if it's not too cluttery. I had images in here. I guess they went away when I uploaded it online. So I apologize for that. There were visuals of what these different things look like. You don't want to rely on colors to communicate meaning. So if you have hot and it's in red, and cold and it's in blue, you can't rely on colors alone to demonstrate meaning, because some people have color blindness. And red and green are the most common forms of color blindness, so you want to especially avoid using those colors. So make sure that you're using text to communicate meaning, not just colors, and that you avoid using a lot of red and green when you're choosing your color scheme for your front page. I know some institutions have those colors, so you will have to, work with your institution on that. But as long as you're not relying on red and green to identify meaning for your content, I think that's what's most important. And you want to use easy to distinguish fonts. The default font in Canvas is good as it is, so you can use that. But just as a note, for whenever you're doing web design, Arial, Open Sans, Comic Sans, Open Dyslexic are all safe bets that you can go with. Oh yeah, here's my pictures. Yay. So yeah, so here's an example, right? So there's a button, but I also have the text above it, right? Don't rely on these colors to communicate meaning. And use text color that use background and foreground colors that are a good contrast, right? So there's an example of good contrast and bad contrast. And keep that in mind. So there's a reason why a lot of default text and background is white on black. What is the standard CGU Canvas font? I think I don't know. Shamini or Shelby might know this. I do know that it's probably the default Canvas font, and I think that the website of CGU is Helvetica, but I'm not sure what they use on Canvas. A form of Helvetica, yes. Thanks, Shamini. Okay, so use clear audio and video that's free of background noise, and try to ensure that your videos don't have a lot of movement. So this applies mostly to if you're making instructional videos, or if you're doing your welcome video. Try to keep, if you're talking to the camera, try to keep yourself planted in one place. Don't move around where it can be visually distracting. And consider getting a noise canceling headset so the audio is clear, or at least try to make sure that you don't have a lot of noise or distractions going on in the background. When you use your videos, try to include subtitles, or if you don't, have a transcript available. And here is the example of the alt. If you want to add the description to your navigation buttons, you would just go in and find this image tag using the method we just talked about earlier, and then right after the alt, add in the description that you want it to read. And it will read, the screen reader will pick that up in the image. Canvas has this pretty well established by default, but you really don't want to use body text smaller than 12-point font, and then just use that H2 tag to make the header text larger. Canvas also has this cool feature in it. So at the bottom of your front page, when you're doing the editing as an instructor, you'll see these different options. We see the HTML icon that we talked about earlier. We also have this accessibility icon. So if you click on that, it won't be check the HTML, but it will check the rich content editor, which is just the text that the students see on the front. So it will run an accessibility check and give you suggestions on things you can change, like adding descriptions to your image. And that's a really handy feature that Canvas has built in. All right, Shelby's helping us out. So the default Canvas font is Lato Web, Lato Extended, and Lato and Helvetica New, Arial, and Sans Serif. So those are the Canvas font families that you have the options to use. And Helvetica is the one CGU uses, if you want to stay close to home. So, all right, and what was I trying to say with that? I don't remember. All right, so now we're on like the warm and welcoming aspect of it. So why do we want to create a warm and welcoming feeling front page? Well, for one, it's disarming, right? Like I've alluded to before, you know, we students are dealing with a lot of stress and anxiety, so a big part of your job as an instructor is to alleviate those anxieties. And so you really want to have a warm and welcoming tone on your front page to disarm your students and make them feel like they're in a safe, comfortable place when they come to your course. It also helps to establish a sense of community. It makes a really good first impression because the home page is the first thing your students see. And it's better for learning and well-being. So if you were at my last webinar, you know that I'm very big on this. I think that more than anything else right now, we need to focus on well-being, make well-being a priority in our teaching. Rigor we get, competitiveness we get. We've done a really good job of sending that message. We know it very, very well. And we've spent a long time in higher education establishing that. We don't need to be worried about being less rigorous by being warm or by being welcoming. It's not a concern because we're not going to forget that. We all know it, right? So we really need to focus on a new message. And it should be a message of good health and good mental health, because we can all be workaholics, but if we do not have good mental health, then we will not be able to do good work. So we have to take care of that for ourselves, and we have to help our students to take care of that as well. So having a warm and welcoming Canvas front page is very important. What are some ways it can be implemented? You can include a course banner image. So think of it as your welcoming mat. You know, if someone's coming to visit your house, you have a welcoming mat out, or if you have a sign, perhaps, on your classroom door so students know that they're in the right class. Including a banner image is the equivalent of that, essentially, in our new normal. It also draws the eye to essential information. So You can put essential information like your Zoom link on your banner image. And since it's really the first thing you see, if you have like the meeting times and dates and your Zoom link, the title of the course on your banner image, it's a real quick, easy way to save space on your Canvas front page and get some of that essential information out while also setting that welcoming tone. Another way you can establish a warm and welcoming front page is to embed a welcome video. So that adds a personal touch. They're getting to see the instructor's face and hear their voice right away. And then you can use that opportunity to set course expectations. So if we're coming into classes, if your students are coming into the class with a lot of that anxiety, or they're worried about, what is this course going to be like, that welcome video can sort of set the tone and feel of what they're going to expect and alleviate some of that anxiety right away and build that sense of community. And then throughout all the text, everything that you're writing on the front page, you want to use relational language throughout. So that you refer to yourself as I, you refer to the student as you, and then talking in terms of we. Not the student will do this, but you will learn this, right? So to create a banner image for your Canvas site, there's many ways that you can do it, of course. But one way that I have found that makes this process a little simpler is to use Canva. So if you go to Canva, www.canva.com, you can create a free account. It costs you no money. And then you can search for Canvas banner. And they'll have several templates that you can use to create a Canvas banner. And any custom image, really. So if you want to make button links for your navigation or for your modules, you can search for that in Canva and find that as well. So here's what it looks like. If you were to go there and search Canvas banner, you'll see that there's all these ready-made templates here that you can just pick from and modify. And then there's a blank one where you can create it from scratch as well. Sometimes creating from scratch is easier, I think, with anything web-related, because when you use templates, you have to get rid of all the bells and whistles you didn't really want just to get what you want anyway. So, sometimes it's easier to start with your own, but that's a personal decision. Here are the buttons. So if you were to search for button, it would look something like this. And there are many wonderful, clever things. Just remember the accessibility note when you're doing this. Make sure that you're either adding those descriptions to the images and some text above it. So once you create it in Canva or wherever you prefer to make it, to upload it to Canvas, you would just go to Files and then upload it as a file here. And then on your front page, you just go to Insert, Image, and you would select Course Images, and then you would find the ones that you uploaded to the site. The benefit of using the course images is you have permalinks, which is like a permanent URL that you can reference the image to. I think Canvas uses similar sort of ID within it, but that way you don't really have to go outside of your course to keep grabbing URL links and stuff like that. So it's much easier if you just upload it to the Canvas site and use that. And once you upload it, it will give you an option to size the image however you want it. Pick a size that looks normal, but just know that you need to go into the HTML editor and add the width to 100%. When it comes to creating a welcome video, the easiest way to do it is just to use Zoom. So you can use Zoom like we're using it right now and just record yourself talking. You can talk right into your speaker if you have a clear background, or use a noise canceling headset. But just remember, for accessibility reasons, keep yourself planted and make sure the audio is clear. And add closed captioning to it and make a transcript available if possible. Then you can upload it to YouTube. and set it as unlisted. So what that means is you can create a free YouTube account, by the way, if you have a Gmail account. It won't cost you any money. You will simply upload the Zoom recording to YouTube, set it as unlisted, and then you can copy the embed code from it. And there's an option in Canvas to embed something. So you will just paste that embed code in, and then the size of the image will adjust well. Yes, this came up in the last webinar. Thank you, Jessi. So Jessi shares that Zoom backgrounds are also an issue for accessibility, so you want to keep that in mind. Try to avoid anything that's flickering or might be a problem for, say, somebody that has epileptic seizures. And that's a good note. That came up last webinar, and I'm not exactly clear what backgrounds other than flickering ones would be an issue. So that's a to-do for me to stretch that inclusive thinking muscle and always seek how we can be better about the choices that we're making as educators. Ceiling fans are a problem. Good point, Carrie. Yes. Yeah, so off your ceiling fan if you're making a welcoming video. So here's what it looks like. So when you upload it, you can just set your visibility to unlisted. And so what that means is that only people that have the link to your video or are on your Canvas page can see the video, but not everybody in YouTube will be able to find it. So it's not going to show up in recommendations. No one's going to know it's there unless they know it's there. And then you just click this share button right here after you've uploaded it and it's processed. And you'll click embed as the sharing option, and you'll get this thing that's called an iframe, which is the embed code. Then on Canvas, you go to Insert, Embed, and a little window will pop up like this. You just paste in the embed code, and then you'll have yourself a nice welcoming video. All right. So talking about transparency. So like we said, you wanted to be transparent in terms of making visible exactly what you want from your students. So this is sort of an exercise in itself, because I think all of us in our working life as educators, we want things from people, we want things from students, but we don't outright say what we want, right? So think about a discussion forum where you were to post something that you want students to discuss, but they're just like reading something and responding to each other to participate. But what you might want is just to create engagement, or you might want to create community. So if that's what you want, come right out and say it, right? Because if your instructions say, read, respond, reply, students will read, respond, and reply, right? But if you want students to discuss openly about something, then say you want them to discuss openly about something and don't put those restrictions on it. Okay, this isn't about discussion forums, this is your front page, but it sort of goes the same way, right? So be transparent. If you want something, put it on there. If you have certain tasks you want students to pay attention to, good point. Is there a way to make it within Canvas? I'm so used to using YouTube, I don't know about that. I think Shelby might know. I do know that you can record videos to reply on comments.
I'll just jump in. Actually, if a simple way to make a welcoming video, maybe not within Canvas, is using Zoom. You can go into your Zoom account and record yourself. That's one way of doing it.
And then you can just upload it, any recording to Canvas directly.
So yeah, so you're just like any Zoom recording, you can download it in, and you get a link. Yeah, that shall be, just put a note in chat.
Oh, got it. Yeah, so I think with institutions, sometimes there's like restrictions on the storage capacity that they have. So they really want you to link videos from somewhere else in instead of like downloading the Zoom recording and uploading it raw. But if you have a cloud link to your Zoom, you have an account that allows a cloud recording, then you can put the link to that on there.
And I just shared something else in the chat, Screencast-O-Matic. It's a app, very easy screen recording. Not so much recording yourself, but you're recording a set of slides or something. You can actually also record yourself. And the free version allows a 15-minute video, which is way more than we need for a welcome video.
Yeah, that's right. I remember you shared that before. Yeah, that's a great one. We'll have to add that to the resources next time we do this. Screencast-O-Matic. It's in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chamini. Consider, as far as transparency goes, also consider providing a tutorial video of your Canvas site, right? So you could put it in the welcome video, and the second part, you could put it in modules for getting started, and you could put a link to it on your front page to that space where they can watch the navigation and say, watch the navigation tutorial. And make sure your students know how to navigate the course you've set up in your Canvas. It will be different for every instructor. It will be different for every course. And again, it saves you a lot of work clearing up confusion, and it saves the students a lot of stress wondering how to do things. And you really don't want people falling behind because they don't know where they're supposed to be or what they're supposed to be doing. So sometimes we're all very busy, right? Sometimes we skim over things, we miss stuff if it's all in writing. So if you can make a quick tutorial video, I think that would help with transparency. And again, set the tone for the course throughout. You know, I'm really big on writing policies that are just more or less like course expectations that set the expectations that you want, right? So, you know, if you want students not to be having preconceived notions about their abilities, state that. State the tone that you want your course to be throughout. And then to the thing that we all said we really cared about when we used Canvas is the information, the informative aspect. What's a good average length? I would say no more than 3 minutes. Try to keep it super short. Thanks for the question, Catherine. So informative means that we're having all the key course information, all the key navigation links, dates, key tasks we want our students to do, providing campus and community resources, showing the learning outcomes and any other course expectations we might want to set. For instance, help seeking, if you want your students to talk openly about things they're going through or use the psychological counseling services, you know, state that in your course expectations to do help seeking, your course learning outcomes, and your course description. Jessi shares that video attention spans begin to drop at 30 seconds. So again, with the essential information, what's most important for you to get out there? Try to get it out in the first 30 seconds. Thanks, Jessi. And so this information that I just briefly went over, again, keep it to the essential information, because remember, you want to keep that ratio of the essential information to secondary information. So really keep it essential. It's very important. Here's some example key navigation links you might use that I might consider are essential. Announcements, modules, a link to the syllabus, their grades. Everybody wants to know how their grades are doing. People, the discussions page, questions and answers. That helps sometimes if you have a question and answer section, because you can answer a question for one person and then everybody will see the answer to it. So that saves many students from having to reach out, and it saves you from having to respond to many different students. You may have a link to the slides that you post up and any files you want to share, say articles and so forth. But a lot of that can go in modules. If you use modules, it's a really great way to get rid of a lot of these extra links. And again, if you want your students to use the modules, you really gotta be really blunt about it and just say it outright. You know, put it in big bold text if you have to. Use modules. Use the modules link. If we chunk our message, knowing that each chunk is about 30 or 4 seconds, we can hold attention. That's a really good point. I assume that Shelby's talking about the welcome video, and that's a good point. So Jessi said that attention spans start to drop after 30 seconds. So does that mean you have to cram everything in the 30 seconds? No, somebody's saying that you can chunk it out, right? So, you know, put your important information in increments of 30 seconds. I hope I didn't misrepresent that. Key course information, so the course outcomes, the course description, meeting information, when does the class meet, where does it meet, where are the Zoom links for it. We should be able to see all of that on the front page. Your instructor contact information, how do you want to be contacted, how responsive are you, put all that in there. Here's some example campus and community resources, campus support services, so like the Writing Center, the Queer Resource Center, International Student Center, housing and food resources. Are there food banks that students can get to? Remember that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, college learning is a very high level thing. It's higher order learning. It's hard to meet if we have lower order needs that have not been satisfied. So it might be helpful to put in housing and food resources on your site if you're aware of any. Campus Health Center, the academic calendar, so we all know what's coming up, the class schedule, registrar, bulletin, links to forms. Yeah, forms, so key tasks. I mean, if you have students have to fill out forms that are coming up, you can put that on there. And like to do this for each week, you could put on there links that sort of change. Key dates, so like withdrawal dates, you're right, you're really helping your students far in advance before they get into trouble. Make sure that you're flagging withdrawal dates, and also any, you know, you want to catch those dates that are coming up early and be sending reminders out, or at least an announcement to the whole class if possible, because there's no reason that anybody should have to get a W if they're aware, right? But sometimes we think that we're letting somebody know, you know, but if we're just letting them know, if we think someone might be in trouble or falling behind and we're only letting them know like 2 days before, they just may not get that in time. So it might be good to put on your front page. Any breaks in the usual pattern, such as if you're doing a field trip instead of meeting, or if there's a holiday coming up, you can put those dates on there. All right, I've talked a lot and we're almost out of time. Here's just that acronym again. I know it's cheesy, don't have to use it, but if it helps you to remember what we talked about a front page design, a student-centered front page design as being digestible, responsive, accessible, warm and welcoming, informative, and transparent. And our essential question was, what kind of Canvas experience do we want to model for our students and future educators? Remember, we often teach is what was taught to us. And so your students will probably go on to create Canvas pages that they had in your course, right? So if you model a really good one for them, you might be contributing to the future of higher education. And also, that second part of the essential question in the beginning was being inclusive, being student-centered. It's not about trying to think of everything. We're not asking ourselves to think of everything. We're asking ourselves to exercise an inclusive thinking muscle because we just want to be the best that we can be, the best educators we can be. And that's a constant struggle, a constant strive. And we do it because we care. Just like the artist cares about tapping into their creativity, or the performer always wants to do a better performance, we always want to look for ways we can be more inclusive. And the more we practice it, the better we get at it. All right, so we're going to have some time for questions if there's any time left for it. Everyone's participated throughout, which I really appreciate. Thank you. And we have some more presents for you, some more resources, and some key PFF information. But let's take a moment to do this poll. It's really important to us to get this feedback because it lets us know, are we doing a good job? What things can we do better? What things might you like to see in the future? So if you could just take a moment and fill this out, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Are we not trying to elevate our students above average? Yes, we are. We want our students to become the best versions of ourselves and be lifelong learners, of course. But I think that if we have that intrinsic motivation going, then that will happen on its own. And the more we enjoy something, the more we're excited to do it. So that's why setting up a student-centered approach is not about holding someone's hand as much as it is clearing their minds and allowing them to learn without being hindered by unnecessary stress. And forgive me if I misinterpreted that. What is the advantage of using modules? That's a really good question. I think it's a really common question. The purpose of using modules is a module is really basically 1 week of work. So it allows your students to move through different pages you set up on Canvas specific to that week's worth of work. And so it's a good way to manage that work and provide all the essential information for those projects rather than having things scattered about. And then when you do a module on Canvas, there's actually a button you can click through to read what the assignment information you need to complete the assignment, a place to do the assignment, submit the assignment, and then that's it. So they can move through it very quickly that way. Can this PowerPoint be emailed to us? Yeah, let's go ahead and share all the links with you real quick. And I should do that on my other computer. So pasting it in now. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and in the poll, because it looks like everyone's responded.
I already did.
Okay, thank you, Jessi.
Yep.
You're the best. This is the next webinar that's coming up. It's the last one for the summer, so try to be there, don't miss it. Transforming the Classroom, Teaching Strategies to Support Transgender, Non-Binary, and Gender Nonconforming Students. Hosted by our Assistant Director, Shelby Lamar, and Professor Kay Lamar. So be sure to go to the events page on GU, which is provided to you in the link, and sign up for it. Also, please join our ethical pedagogy community on LinkedIn. This is a really great way that we're trying to build community with our alumni, current students, CGU students, and it's a great resource. I just had one of our PFF students looking to observe more teaching in the classroom beyond just what was required in this teaching certificate course. And I encouraged her to go to the LinkedIn page and post it there, because we have alumni that are teaching all over the place and we can really help each other. So we're trying to help each other and we want you to be a part of that. Here are all the other opportunities we have for you. Events we talked about, like the webinars. Make sure that you come make an appointment if you want help setting up any of these aspects in your own Canvas site. You can go to our appointment link, and any of our fellows will be happy to help you with that. We have this link tree, so that will take you to our blog site, our Facebook and other social media pages, and everything PFF. Email us at pff.cgu.edu. Know that we also offer a certificate in college teaching, where you can really get a leg up on preparing yourself for a professor role, or sharpen your teaching skills if you are a current professor. So reach out to us for more information on that. Here are some of those presents I told you about. There's the link to the Canvas site to create your buttons, and some additional resources to how to create a Canvas course as a teacher for free, and some video guides for doing many different things on Canvas. All right, some of you have already asked questions, and I know we're out of time, so I will respond to the remaining questions, and anyone that wants to stay and chat more, you're welcome to, but I will not keep you here. Oh, got it. Looks like we got to other questions. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. It means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. I hope it was helpful to you. And we'll be looking out for your feedback. Feel free to email PFF too, and let us know what kind of webinars you'd like to see in the future. We really want to do things that are important to you. Thanks, Catherine. Have a good one.
Hey, Kathleen. Good to see you here.